If you've hauled dry bulk for any amount of time, you already know something that most people don't. Pneumatic hauling isn't just a job, it's a craft. It's pressure, timing, precision, knowing your equipment, your product, and yourself. And if you work at Bulk Transit, you know something else too. This company isn't static. It never has been. This is Always Pneumatic, Never Static, the first ever podcast made specifically for the people who keep Bulk Transit moving. Not a sales pitch, not a safety lecture, not a corporate memo with intro music. This is a place to tell the stories, pass along the knowledge, laugh a little, learn a little, and shine a spotlight on the culture that has made this company what it is today. I'm Marcus Bridges, and whether you're in the cab, in the shop, in the office, or somewhere between loads, this show is for you. And for our very first episode, we're starting where every good operation starts, right at the beginning. Today, you'll hear the story of Bulk Transit from the ownership themselves, how it started, what made it work, and why the culture you experience today was never an accident. So settle in, air up, and let's roll.
You are listening to Always Pneumatic, Never Static, the totally pressurized podcast brought to you by Bulk Transit, where we keep the lines clear, the tanks empty, and the conversation anything but dry. Whether you're running powder, pellets, or anything in between, pull up a seat, crack the windows, and let's hit it.
What's up out there, Bulk Transit? Welcome into Always Pneumatic, Never Static, your very own brand new shiny podcast. I am your host, Marcus, and I cannot wait to get this thing off the ground and rolling with you guys. We've got a great episode planned for you today, and here during our launch, we've actually got more than one episode for you to listen to. So if you've got some windshield time today, it's a great time for you to click download and really get in touch with how this podcast is going to sound and what we're going to be talking about during it. Now, just around the corner, as I said, we will talk to the ownership group. That, of course, is Brad, Bryan, and Andrea. And they're going to tell us about how this company started, going all the way back to when they were just little kids. And it's a really nice, comprehensive look with 3 different viewpoints. You get to hear their stories about how they came up through the ranks. And really just listen to a very fun conversation and story about Bulk Transit. So that's all coming up here in just a minute. But one thing I notice whenever we start one of these podcasts for a fleet is there's a little bit of a question floating in the air. Who is this dude? Who's the guy behind the microphone? Why is he here? Well, great question, first of all, and ready to answer it right here for you. As I've said, my name is Marcus Bridges. I am a former radio professional. I did about close to 10 years on terrestrial radio, and I have probably no less than 4,000 to 5,000 podcast episodes under my belt at this time, both during and after I got out of the terrestrial radio gig. So I am, at the very heart of it, a broadcaster. And just a little about me. I love conversation. I always have loved conversation. Even when I was a shy kid, I wanted to get people talking. I felt like that was the best way for me to really understand who that person is. And what you'll notice as you join me on this podcast, because again, this podcast is for you, the employees at Bulk, to come tell your stories and talk about the culture and talk about why you like working for the company, talk about the hardships. We will talk about it all because really down at my core, I love the conversation. When you do join me on this podcast, what you'll notice is I keep things very conversational. I do have some questions, all right? I'm prepared. I'm a professional. I'll ask you some things to try to set up a conversation, but this isn't gotcha journalism. This isn't Fox News or CNN. It's not TMZ. I'm not going to absolutely pepper you with questions that are pre-prepared and designed to get some sort of predetermined result. The questions I ask you, they're going to be more like jumping off points. And I think you'll hear that when we talk with Brad, Bryan, and Andrea here just around the corner. So make sure you pay attention to that because we want you employees to feel comfortable coming on this podcast. We've made it very easy for you logistically. Drivers out there will like to know that this can be done over the phone very simply. Get you on a 10-minute break, or you're 30, or maybe you're doing your reset. It's real easy to throw on the headset. I'll call you up real quick. We'll have a conversation. We'll have some fun, and we'll get you back to doing what you need to be doing. It's all in fun. We're here to showcase the culture. When I sat down with Brad and Bryan and Andrea a few months ago, I was out there in Columbus, got the chance to meet some of you, and by the way, it was an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to work with this group of people, especially to do this type of thing. I don't think I've ever been at a fleet that was so excited about the prospects of having a podcast. That's really good news to me. That means that we've got something already. So I can't wait to work with all of you, and I want to welcome you on this show right here, right now. It's very important that you know every one of you is welcome. If you are an employee at Bulk, this podcast is for you to either come on and listen to or just enjoy listening to. But it's really important that you know that you are welcome, and I'm not going to beat you up here. I make this really easy on you, and we have a lot of fun here. Just a couple more things about me. I'm a former radio professional. Now I guess you could call me a professional podcast host. Not a lot of people get paid for doing that, and pretty much everybody has one, so that's kind of cool. I am a giant college football fan. Those of you out in Ohio will probably start to develop a fun rivalry with me, as I am a graduate of the University of Oregon, and I am a season ticket holder for my beloved Oregon Ducks football team. And I already see this fun little Big Ten cross-country rivalry that's starting to shape up with the Ohio State Buckeyes. And you guys got us last time in the Rose Bowl. Heck of a game you played there. Really, really took it to us on your way to winning a national title. But we're still here, and we want our revenge. So we'll see you next year when the 2026 college football season kicks off. Also a giant NFL fan. My team is the 49ers. I am a West Coast guy. I am actually located in the state of Oregon, right here in the city that the University of Oregon resides in, Eugene. I'm about 100 miles from the coast, sitting right on I-5. And I know that we don't get a lot of you bulk drivers out here, but if you are ever out here and you've got a 30, after we talk a lot and we get to know each other a little bit, if you got a 30 and you're in Eugene, Oregon, your boy will come buy you some coffee and sit down and chat with you for a little bit. So never forget that, okay? And it's also very important for you to know that we have a landing page for you to go to, a website where everything that the podcast has its hands in will be available for you to get your hands in. I'm talking every episode will be at the website, so you can listen to it right there. You don't have to go to Apple Music or Spotify or any of the rest of them. At that website, you'll also be able to send me an email directly. Let's say you have a topic you want to talk about. Great. I take all the ideas that you can send this way. I like to live by the adage, and I told a lot of people this when I was out in Columbus. We don't believe in bad ideas on this show. We just believe in ideas that maybe we haven't fleshed out enough yet to get them on. So any idea is welcome. You're going to go over to podcast.bulktransit.com. Real simple. Podcast.bulktransit.com. You're going to hear me say more words on this podcast during its life than what you ever thought you would hear one man say. That being said, you are going to hear me say podcast.bulktransit.com so much it will become tattooed in your gray matter, and that's okay. We want you to know this is the place for you to go so that you can not only get in touch with me, but get in touch with everything that the podcast is involved in. We can put photo galleries up there. We can put driver metrics up there. We can have polls that go up there. I've got to introduce you guys to just a massive podcast team. And when I say massive, understand that I mean there's not very many of us, but they're massive because of the work that they do behind the scenes. I'm the only guy you get to hear from during this podcast, but I want to pay special attention to Jessica, our producer. Jessica handles all the behind-the-scenes stuff. She's a master communicator, and she really does keep my head level, okay? Mike, my audio ninja. I told you guys how many words you're going to hear me speak. Mike, the poor soul, has heard so many more. I've worked with Mike now for going on 3 years, and I will tell you right now, he's edited more of my voice than any one man should, and he is an absolute legend. Turns stuff around fast, always makes me sound good. You guys wouldn't know this, but I don't sound this good before Mike gets his hands on it. So big ups to my Audio Ninja Mike. And one more person that definitely warrants a mention here is our web guy, Tyler. He's responsible for podcast.bulktransit.com. He's the guy. And without that, we wouldn't have that place for you to go. So very important people there. Also want to mention Ari. She's working on graphics. Anything that you see on the socials, probably had Ari getting in there and mixing it up with the graphics. She's a phenomenal graphic artist. So that's just the team. That's us, right? And there's more of us, and you'll get to meet them sooner or later. Who knows? Maybe I might even convince them one day to come on the air with me. Some of them just got a weird tickle in their nose and flipped off a picture of me, I promise you. But that's the team. Couldn't do it without them. Thank you. Huge hats off to all of them. Honestly, this is not a one-man gig, and these people help me prove that every single day behind the scenes with the hard work that they do. So there you have it. There's what I would call the homework of the day. What is this podcast? How can you access it? And what are we going to be talking about? Oh, yeah, and who the heck are you? All of those boxes have been checked, and now that means it's time for us to actually get into the meat of our very first episode here on Always Pneumatic, Never Static. I've got Andrea McClung, Bryan DeWolf, and Brad DeWolf hanging out right around the corner, and they're about to tell me the history of this fantastic company you all work for. Now, I know there's a lot of you out there that have been here for 20, 30 years, so this should be a nice little peek behind the curtain. What's actually going on in there in the office, and why did it all work out so well? We're going to tell you the story right now. All right, welcome back in here to Always Pneumatic, Never Static, and very excited. As the host, whenever you bring on the first interview segment of a brand new podcast, it's kind of like watching the whole thing become real, and here we are. It's very real now because I am joined by the three people that keep this thing moving on a daily basis. Let's start by welcoming President of Bulk, Bryan DeWolf. Bryan, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate you having us.
Also joining us here is Brad DeWolf. He's the Director of Maintenance. Brad, great to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having us.
Of course. And we've also got Andrea McClung here. Andrea is the HR Director over at Bulk. Andrea, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Marcus. Excited about doing this.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you, and figured maybe the best thing that we can do, start off and talk a little bit about the relationship of you three. Now, most of the people working for you are already going to know that relationship, but just in case there's some people out there that don't, Bryan, go ahead and start with you. This is a little bit of a family-run business, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is, Marcus. Yeah, Dad started the business, and we all migrated to the business on our own, in our own timing, and it's great to be able to. Well, it was great to be able to work with Dad for so many years, and then, of course, work with Andrea and Brad as siblings. So, yeah, just a blessing.
And how many different little odd jobs did you do before you ended up as president of Bulk, Bryan? What type of ways did you cut your teeth coming up through the ranks?
Well, when Dad was small, he would do his own tire work. So my first experience about coming to work with him was when he'd go in on Sundays and he'd grab a 6-pack of beer. And back in that day, you'd have inner tube style tires, and you'd have to break the tires down and change out the inner tubes. Well, I enjoyed just climbing around the tires and, building a little tunnel with them. And that's kind of my first experience with, in the trucking business. And, as I got older, we moved out here, and my first real paying job was mowing the lawn every day or every week. So we had a little riding tractor, and I would mow the lawn every week, and on the weekends, though, I'd come out with them. I'd also earn a little extra money if I could find a flat tire in the lot. So
nice. That's great.
That's what I did when I was younger. Started working in the shop when I was in high school, and I don't have very good mechanical skills. Let's put it that way. My mechanical inclination is not very good. So I think I cost the company more money than I saved it by working on trucks. That wasn't my talents. Thankfully, that Brad got all the mechanical skills. But yeah, I went from there and went into the office and worked all the different departments, safety, dispatch, billing and payroll, and then when I graduated college, I started running terminals, covering for terminal managers, vacations, and that type thing to really learn the business, all the way through. So, yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it sounds like you got a lot of really good experience there. And it's kind of funny. My dad did something a lot the same with me. As a young kid, my first paying job was you have one responsibility. That's to mow my lawn and mow the neighbor's lawn. If you get that done, everything else, your time is yours. Was never very good at it. And I will say, at least you had the riding lawnmower. My dad waited for me to go to college, and then he bought a riding lawnmower, Bryan. So
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, he really was. Like, he really knew how to cut down on those labor costs. Brad, let's talk to you a little bit. Being the one that was so mechanically inclined, how did you cut your teeth coming up? Has it always been a maintenance thing for you, or did you get the experience with all the odd jobs and work in the terminals and everything else as well?
No, I got all the odd jobs too. I obviously, I'm 4 years younger than Bryan, so I'm not sure that we started the same year, but probably wasn't 4 years after him. I can tell you that. And so I did this, I mowed some grass. I was the weekend latex trailer wash guy. And that was
Yeah, that's right.
quite a procedure back in those days. So that's what I spent every Saturday and Sunday doing for a couple of years. On top of, my friends used to make fun of me when I was in middle school and high school about we'd get done with football practice and there would be a white pickup truck out there to pick me up to take me to work. They're like, hey, you got to go to work after school and football? I'm like, yeah. But, and then after the trailer washing, I managed all our tires. Like I did all the purchasing, tracking, purchasing, branding, changing, fixing, repairing, service calls. I did a lot of tire work for a long time, as my back can attest to that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And tire work for a trucking company, that's a pretty busy gig, I would assume, right? You're never really sleeping.
It's busy and it's physical. So
yeah, absolutely.
Both ways. And then, I don't know, I worked second shift. I worked third shift as a mechanic, as actual tech for a couple summers. On the summers, I'd work full time. So it would be a second or a third shift full time. You wasn't allowed to work day shift full time when I was in high school or whatever. And at summers, I had to work one of the off shifts. And that wasn't, I don't know how many years after I graduated high school that I moved in as a dispatcher. And I was, a couple of years as dispatch and a couple of years as the Plain City terminal manager.
Well, that's great background there. And Andrea, it's your turn. Talk to us about coming up through the company and what your path looked like there. Because if you weren't mowing lawns and breaking your back with the tire work, you've got to have some pretty good stories to tell us as well.
Yeah, clearly I got off easy. I'm not sure here. Yeah, so I started out as a file clerk. And my first desk was a door on 2 filing cabinets. That tells you how we started. Really fancy operation.
Yeah.
And from there, I audited payroll and billing, worked part-time through college and whatnot. And then when I graduated college, I took over like all the benefits. Actually, it might have been a little before I graduated, but I took over managing all the benefits for the employees. And then as rules and regulations kind of grew and got more cumbersome, then we decided we needed a whole HR department, and I became that, and that's where I still am. So work alongside safety a lot. I've kind of dipped my toes in safety a little bit just because it goes together hand in hand, obviously. But yep, so from file clerk to HR director.
Very cool. Well, I love the background that we've got on all of you here, and now that we've got that, I want to start all the way back at the very beginning. Tell us who your dad was and what was the problem he was trying to solve when this whole company got started. And I know that part of this is going to come from your perspective as children. So talk us through it from start to where we are today. And really, I don't want to dictate who's going to take this one. I'll let you guys decide who wants to jump in first and start with talking about who your dad was and the formulation of the company.
Well, I mean, I can start, but you guys jump in whenever. You know, a lot of this comes from, we were pretty young. So a lot of this comes from mom and dad telling us the story. So, but you know, my dad drove a truck for 10 years, hauled petroleum, worked on second shift, you know, was a member of the Teamsters Union, and saw, you know, he just saw within that organization he worked for a lot of inefficiencies and frustrations, and thought he could run a company better than the one he worked for. So I think mom and him had some money saved up, and he took it. You know, it was being saved up for a house, because we lived in a house. We lived in a trailer at the time, a mobile trailer, and mom was saving up for a house, and he took the money and he bought a truck with it. So I can't imagine how that went over at dinner, but at some point, instead of a house, mom got a truck. But
what every woman wants, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he started with dump trucks, so straight dump trucks. He started, you know, he would work at night hauling petroleum, and during the day he would run his dump truck, and he hired somebody then to work the dump truck at night too, hauling rock. So of course, you know, we're talking back in the late 60s, and regulations weren't quite as stringent as they are now, Marcus. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's one way to put it, for sure.
So, yeah, and you know, from there he just, you know, I think you need a lot of hard work and a little bit of luck, because, you know, frankly, a lot of companies don't make it off the ground, and he definitely had the hard work part of it figured out. He worked his tail off, and he got a little luck too along the way, and you know, he kept buying more and more trucks, and he had a guy he dealt with at the quarry. He was, you know, was a manager, managed the quarry, and the company that owned the quarry bought a lime mine down in Kentucky, and, you know, asked Dad if he wanted to get into pneumatic tanks. They needed somebody to haul lime from the mine down in Kentucky to the city of Columbus to the water treatment plants. And, of course, Dad was all over it and did it, bought some tanks, and that's kind of how we really transitioned into being a pneumatic company, pneumatic tank company. And pneumatics were that was a pretty new thing back in the early 70s. And, but, he jumped on the opportunity, and pneumatics became more and more prevalent as the decades rolled on. And yeah. And, like I said, he had to get a few breaks here and there, and then was able to expand from there.
It sounds like he was okay kind of being on the cutting edge of new technology, what with, just jumping into to buying a couple pneumatic trailers right off the bat there. Did you see that as kind of a common thread throughout your dad's involvement in the business and bringing it up? Was the being able to take some of those new tech risks, try out some things that maybe weren't fully pressure tested in the industry? Was that something that he liked to do?
Not throughout. I would say initially, yeah, he was a huge risk taker, early on in the business. He took on quite a few risks. But as we matured as a company, and how he taught us how to run a company, how to not only run a company, but to keep a company and build a company to last the long term. He was a lot more conservative. He's very conservative, and his debt, always kept his debt in check. he never got himself stretched out. He put the money back into the company, always try to, pay the people who work for him as much as he could. And, he understood that, that's what's going to, get the company growing is
Mhm.
having good people. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but
And
I would say early on, yes, he's a risk taker, but later on, he didn't need to take as many risks, and he was very much about controlled growth and not getting too far over your skis and growth, and then short changing your the customers that kind of got you there.
yeah, sure. Well, hey, the transportation industry is littered with the corpses of those who didn't take manage risks, but also just were constantly taking risks out there. Being measured about it, being thoughtful about it is always a good thing. And you talked about the people there, Bryan and Andrea. I wanted to go to you here as the HR director. Can you talk to me a little bit? How did your dad treat the drivers differently at his company versus maybe the way that drivers were treated at other fleets during that time? Because you mentioned, like I said, Bryan, a lot of good people it took to get this company to where it is today. And part of that is keeping good employees around. So, Andrea, what was your dad's philosophy on the treatment of the drivers that really make this thing go?
Yeah, I would say in the early days, I mean, he was running the business with friends. He was friends with the guys that were working for him, and definitely trust and loyalty was super important to him. And so if he had a previous relationship with somebody, then that was somebody that he would want to do business with or want working for him. But yeah, respect and loyalty was everything to Dad. He definitely felt like, if you are respectful to somebody else, then they'll give it back to you. And loyalty meant a whole lot to him. So, as you kind of develop those relationships with the employees and whatnot, I really think that was really important. And it speaks volumes that, some of those drivers that started out with him, stayed their entire career working for him. And then us, we've been very blessed that way that a lot of the originals were still around, and we got to see them retire, and there's still a couple here. I mean, we've got, a driver with 41 years of service that's,
Wow.
actually over 41 years. His name is Freddie Clark, and he's still with us. So we had a lot of guys that, really were more like family than anything else. And I think that kind of goes to the respect and the loyalty and the dedication, and it went both ways. I mean, Dad would, he felt like that relationship went both ways,
Mhm.
give to each other, and it'll come back to you.
Yeah. Well, and listen, I can give you a fly on the wall perspective because I got to go out to Columbus and spend about a week with you there at the main terminal. I met drivers, I met trainers, I met Brad. You brought the whole shop in, and we got to have lunch. So I felt like I got to get to know some people. And one thing that was a common thread the entire time is, I say, hey, why do you keep this job? You could have a job anyplace else. Why bulk? And they say, because I feel like I'm a family member here. And
Mhm.
I've never felt like that anyplace else that I've worked in the past. And I want to keep that feeling. And boy, it really permeates the walls of the entire establishment when you have a workforce that feels like they're treated well. And I think that it was just really cool to see that. And then to hear you guys talk about it as sort of this pulse, this heartbeat that's run through the company since the inception is just really cool. And Brad, I want to go to you now here because a very important part of keeping good people at the job for a trucking fleet is good equipment. So talk to me a little bit about your dad's philosophy on the equipment. I know you started working with it at a young age. How have you sort of kept your dad's mindset on the equipment that Bulk runs pulsating through all these years later?
Well, I mean, Dad was big on keeping everything maintained and safe as far as that's concerned. So we've kept that mentality over the years. Of course, way back when, parts were a lot cheaper than what they are now. Let's put it that way. So we at
Yeah.
I know that he used to tell people before him, if you need one, buy two. And we definitely don't go with that mentality anymore. So there's been some things that we have kept his way of thinking, and there's other things that we've changed, right? Because you got to roll with time. But I think he always realized that keeping a safe or a truck maintained is a way to keep happy employees. And of course, over time, though, I mean, back in the 70s and the 80s, of course, trucks weren't near as nice, right? Or just like automobiles, they didn't have LCD screens in them and beautiful display clusters as a dash. You had to crank the windows down with your hands. Have a little button to push. You probably didn't have a switch that said AC, and you really didn't have a recirculation button, right? The equipment back then, I just feel like trucking jobs back then probably weren't as abundant as they are now. And you could get away with not having the nicest equipment out there. And so as times changed, and we've realized, and he realized prior to him leaving, but that we have to roll with the times. And as the demand for nicer equipment came about, then we started providing.
That's great. Yeah, I use your dad's philosophy when I'm buying jeans, Brad, because as I get older, I realize that nothing really looks good on me anymore in my eyes. So if you need one pair of jeans, buy two, because you're not going to get that same cut ever again. Yeah. And, if you're standing in the dressing room really liking the way you look, go ahead and call it two in my bag for sure. Bryan, I'll go back to you here a little bit. One thing I noticed when I was there meeting you guys is how much respect and loyalty you guys do have to the drivers. Let's start out first. Can you give me just kind of a ballpark number of how many drivers Bulk has right now as we're recording this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have Spur Transit as well, and 100, we're right around 190, maybe just one or two shy of that, but we've been about 190, for the last 3 or 4 months. So, yeah.
And so 190 good drivers, right? Really good drivers, people that you've invested in, people that move the company forward every day. Let's talk about how much that meant to the growth of the company, going from just dad running a dump truck overnight to where it is today. How much do drivers, and not just drivers, but good, loyal, safe drivers, mean to the growth of Bulk and Spur that we've seen over the years?
Yeah, everything. It doesn't happen without people, and especially in our business, without drivers who are hardworking and care about their jobs and the performance that they. Their performance, and it just doesn't happen. Growth doesn't happen. Longevity doesn't happen without good people. He loved talking to drivers, because at heart he was one. I mean, that's just who he was. So he enjoyed doing that. He enjoyed talking to drivers, and he, honestly, was able to keep his kind of the thumb on the pulse of the company because of him always having conversations with any random driver that he wasn't an intentional situation. Like, he would just walk out, and if he saw a guy out there, he'd strike up a conversation and have a talk with him. It means a lot, and you just can't, in this business, you just can't provide good service, grow, be profitable without good people and good drivers.
100%. Andrew, I've got a little bit of an off-the-wall one here for you, but if it puts you on the spot too much, just tell me no and move on. But tell me this, in a perfect world, how do you see some of your drivers talking about Bulk or Spur, either one, at a truck stop? They've struck up a conversation with a random driver. What are some things in a perfect world you would love to hear these drivers brag about working for Bulk about at the truck stop?
Oh boy. I guess I would say that they would probably say that they're not just a number here. Like, we're big enough that, we're able to do things and have nice equipment and have good benefits and all of that. But they're not just a number. Our employees have names and we know their names. And, even though we're spread out over 10 locations, at least my end of things, I see their names so much that I know their names. I talk to many of them all the time. So I hopefully would say that we have an open door policy that, we're here for them if they want to talk and chat, or if they have an issue, we're going to help them solve it. If we don't know, if we can't help them solve it, we'll help them find the person that can. So hopefully they talk about how they're not a number and that we have an open door policy and that we are family and we are treated, we do treat our employees like they're a part of the bigger picture. They're not just an employee. They're a part of the big picture, and they're really the reason for the success of the company. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And I can't tell you about the truck stop. I can tell you about how they talked to me behind closed doors when nobody else was listening. And I got a lot of that. Family is a term that's thrown around kind of willy-nilly in the transportation industry. And I've seen a lot of fleets that maybe don't live up to that mindset there, Andrea, and you can tell at Bulk that that's not the case. The drivers are happy. I did not talk to one person who had anything bad to say, and typically, drivers like to talk. They get chatty sometimes. You guys know that, and you never really know what to expect. But one thing I found is that I kept feeling like I was sitting at a family dinner with everybody that I was in. It was wide open conversation. There wasn't a lot of breaking the ice. They wanted to talk and they wanted to tell us how good things were for them in the day-to-day. And that's the reason I ask you that, is because I want to know, in a perfect world, what they would be saying to me if they met me at a truck stop. And it sounds like you're kind of right on par with the things that they're already saying. So great stuff there. Brad, I'm going to do the same thing to you a little bit, but I'm going to turn it to your area of expertise. Talk to me about the equipment. If in a perfect world, what is a bulk driver saying about the equipment to another driver he runs into at the truck stop?
Well, obviously, I would hope that if he's talking to another driver, that he would praise the responsiveness of how we react when they have a problem with the equipment. I mean, ultimately, that's what the drivers want. If they have an issue with something, they want to talk to somebody and have somebody respond. The worst thing you can do is just shrug it off and act like what they're saying doesn't mean anything. Even if sometimes their requests are a little bit off the chart, you still have to listen and then explain to them why you can't do that for them, because you then have to do it for another 200 guys, and it would be at a huge expense to the entire company. There's sometimes that you have to get, but I would hope at least they would talk to somebody and say, hey, they keep good equipment, and when there is a problem, they respond.
Absolutely. And I also want to give some flowers to the shop here, because it is, I've always looked at the technicians as sort of the unsung heroes of the companies that we work for. What you notice is, because you guys are always so busy, we don't get to talk to them very often here on the podcast. And so before we even get out of the blocks in episode 1, it's important to me, Brad, to give you some time to talk about how important your staff out there at the shop is, because we're not just working on trucks. We got trailers. There's so many aspects, and I got to meet those guys. What a cool group of guys. First off, felt like I was a member of the team after being at lunch with you guys for 30 minutes, but tell me a little bit about the quality of the team working on trucks and trailers out there in Columbus and beyond.
Yeah, pretty much across the slate, no matter what terminal you go to, it's pretty awesome. Top tier across the board. I mean, it's just been, I'm blessed to have all these people working for me, because it makes my job a lot easier. To the guys that have been here a long time, which I have some guys in my shop here in Plain City that's been here like a long time, 30, coming on 40 years. And,
wow.
And I've retired. I don't know what Kenny had, 38 or 40. He was right in there, a guy that retired from me. So turnover in my shop compared to other shops is pretty much non-existent. Again, it goes to, making them feel like they're family. And, yeah, it's really cool to have a group of people as qualified as they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And hats off to all you guys out there. We know you're working hard. We will make space for you on this show. If you ever want to come on, you've got all the same opportunity that the drivers and other employees do. But we also want to let you off the hook by saying we understand you're busy. It's a very important job that you guys are doing out there. And to keep a responsiveness rate like you're talking about, Brad, these guys have got to be willing to just go all the time. So hats off to everybody on the maintenance team, including yourself there, Brad, because, heard a lot of good stuff about the equipment while we were out there meeting the staff as well. But I want to kind of turn this to getting towards wrapping up here a little bit because it's been a great conversation, but I know you guys are busy and we're in time zones on opposite sides of the country right now. So trying to keep the logistics thing close to the heart here. Bryan, tell me this. What do you think would make your dad proud today about the way that Bulk is run?
I think the biggest thing is that we represent his legacy well, in that we still provide very good service, great service, I would say, to our customers. We do it competitively. We still have pretty much all the same customers that he brought on board. I mean, that's just the facility we hauled lime from back in early 1970s. We still haul out of there. We still haul lime to the city of Columbus every day. And so I think he would be proud of the fact that the things that he did to build the business that we've been able to, maintain and not slip down a couple notches. He taught us well enough to keep the business running, keep it thriving, and keep it in a position to continue to grow. So I think he wasn't much for words or compliments, I will say that, but I think he would be proud of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, well put there. And you know what? I'm betting he's very proud of the way that this company runs. And now we have a podcast that we get to showcase it once a week, every single week with an hour of content. We are going to be showcasing exactly the heartbeat that runs through this company, the culture, the people, the stories. There are thousands of them, and we've got so much content to work with here. I, as the host, am very excited about where this podcast is going to go. One thing you guys will all learn about me as you join me on more and more of these is I have one thing that I like to do with every interview that I ever do, and that is just what I like to call final thoughts. I'm always perpetually worried, just a peek behind the curtain at me, your host, I'm perpetually worried that I'm going to leave something on the table that would have been really good if we talked about it. So I like to give everybody a chance to hammer me with their final thoughts before we wrap up here. And Andrea, I already put you on the spot once earlier today. You did fantastic. So guess what? You're back in the spotlight here. Final thoughts for me today. You've got a podcast now to showcase everything that goes on at Bulk. We've got this great history of the company to work with here. Final thoughts for us as we wrap up the very first episode of Always Pneumatic, Never Static.
Yeah, I guess my final thought is kind of goes back to what Bryan was talking about. I mean, we didn't get in the business because Dad expected us to. It was actually the exact opposite. He really didn't intend for us to get in the business. Not that he didn't love having us here, but he wanted us all to kind of follow our own dreams. And I think that's probably what led to us being here, is because it wasn't implied, or it wasn't the intention. But it was such a blessing. Like, I can't speak enough to how blessed I feel to have been able to work next to my dad. I mean, he worked his butt off, when I was young. And so the relationship wasn't real close because he worked a lot. And so it gave us the opportunity to work alongside him. And I just think that is such a blessing. And the fact that I get to work with my brothers, and I've said this many times before, is I wouldn't be here if they weren't here. So we're in this together, and I just hope that we can make them proud.
Well, I think that you definitely are, and the fact that none of you guys are walking around with a black eye or a limp must means that the sibling relationship is very strong there. I know that if you put me in a room for 40 hours a week with my sister, I would be the one walking out of there with a few bruises for sure. But I think it's been really cool to see your guys' dynamic. You have a great working relationship there, and I feel privileged to be a part of this whole thing. And very well said there, Andrea. Brad, I'm going to go to you now for your final thoughts. Again, hats off to the entire maintenance department and the job you guys do. What can you leave us with today as we wrap up, Brad?
Well, we appreciate the good words on the maintenance staff. We don't get too many compliments in the maintenance department, so I do appreciate that. I don't know. My final thoughts, I was kind of go the other way. My final thoughts are more about the podcast. I'm excited to see how the employees kind of take to it and see what kind of feedback we get. If we get hopefully we get really good participation. Andrea mentioned Freddie Clark earlier, one of our old drivers. He might be somebody you want to put on the roster to get on. He was in here the other day with all the pictures of the trucks he's driven since he started at Balk. And
wow.
He had the old ones. He had all the goodies. So that would be pretty cool to talk about. But no, I'm just excited to see where the podcast goes and see how the team reacts to it, responds. And, just something new and something exciting.
Well, thanks, Brad. I'm very excited. I know I've got high standards to live up to there, and we're gonna live up to them. And you tell Freddie, I welcome all comers, but if you're walking in with a photo album of all the trucks you've driven, you just move to the top of my list. We can put together a photo gallery on the website of all those trucks. If we can line that up with Freddie, we definitely will. Brad, thank you for that.
Just don't call him Freddie. He doesn't go by Freddie. That's his real legal name. That's what we call him. But Joe Clark is the known handle.
See, you got. Thank you.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the exact same thing. He's gonna kill us. I called him Freddie. It's Joe.
When he calls me on my phone, I say, "What's up, Freddie Lee, Joe Clark?" And he doesn't like it so much. So that's all good.
All right. Well, I'm really glad that on the first episode we can establish that you guys aren't going to let me walk headlong into something like that without a warning.
I'll give you a heads up anyways. Then you can do it anyways if you want to go that route.
There we go. I'll work on developing a bit of a relationship with Joe before he turns into Freddie for me, okay? That's great stuff. Bryan, final thoughts from you before we let you go today.
Similar to Brad's, very excited about the podcast. Like we talked about, this company was built on people, and I just think it's a great way for us to. I'm just really excited, and it's a great way for us all to learn more about each other. And I think that's the really cool thing about this podcast. It's not going to be my boring self on here every time. We're gonna be able to learn a lot about a lot of people that frankly we don't have time to have long discussions with that may work in different terminals or Sydney or Saginaw or wherever. And I'm excited to see where this thing goes and learn more about the people that work with Balk and Spur. And yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. It should be a really fun ride to see how this thing evolves, and I just can't wait to see how it works out.
I can speak from everybody on our side that we are all just stoked is the best way I can put it to get this podcast off the ground for you guys. It's been a great group of people to work with, and I've only gotten to work with you for just a couple of months. So knowing that we've got so many podcast episodes out in front of us and so many great stories to tell, I'm jumping from foot to foot over here. And with respect to what Brad said about hoping that the employees respond well enough, I got to tell you something about myself, Brad. I'm real insidious. If you let me stick around long enough, we'll be friends. I promise you that. I just can't live with myself if it goes any other way. So happy to be here with all of you. Bryan DeWolf, Brad DeWolf, and Andrea McClung. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Very much looking forward to doing this more with you guys in the future. And so excited about where Always Pneumatic, Never Static is going to take us. You all have a fantastic day. We'll get you back on here again soon, all right?
All right. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
What a phenomenal conversation with Andrea, Bryan, and Brad there. Can't thank them enough for taking the time to come and tell that story, and understand that because of the circumstances, some parts of that story aren't always the easiest story to tell, but we greatly appreciate them for taking the time to just come and tell us the story. How cool is it that they're all doing work as like young kids? You know, I, as a 14-year-old, 13-year-old, 12-year-old even, would go down and do some like intermittent filing work for my dad at his insurance company. And like, I didn't learn a lot about insurance back then, but the things that I do know are things that I never would have learned outside of that experience. And even as a very young kid, you really start to shape and mold yourself. And I think that's what happened with Bryan, Brad, and Andrea. I've got to see behind the curtain. I see how tight of a ship they run. I see how happy all the employees are that we get to meet and talk to. And it just makes sense that, hey, they've been doing this for a really long time. They've been in this. This has been in their blood, actually, for a really long time. And it makes sense when you zoom out and understand, wow, it's a well-oiled machine over here at Bulk Transit. The employees are happy. Freight's getting delivered. There aren't people yelling and screaming in the hallways. Things are good. And there's good reason for that. It's the culture. It's the way that they have formed this company to run, the things that they hold dear, the values that they inject into the company, get re-injected back into the company by everybody else that benefits from them. And look, my whole role in the world is to be a fly on the wall while people tell these stories and just kind of get the ball, keep the ball moving, if you will. Didn't have to work hard at all for this one. So again, before we let you go today, just want to give a big hats off to Bryan, Brad, and Andrea. They're very excited about this podcast. They're a big reason that we are even here doing this. So without them, we might not have this. So got a lot of appreciation for the time and just the care that went into telling those stories. We're going to get so many more of them. In fact, we've got an episode planned for you with the OGs of Bulk. I'm talking people that have been here for 20, 30 years, maybe even more. And that's going to be our second episode in our little launch package for you here. So stay tuned. In fact, you don't even have to stay tuned. Just go over to podcast.bulktransit.com and click the next episode because it's already up there for you. And just so you know, after you listen to these episodes that came out on the launch day, we will be producing 1 hour-long episode for you to launch every single Wednesday at 5 a.m. local time, so that you will always have something to listen to get you through your hump day. Always Pneumatic, Never Static is the name of this show, and we are cooking with gas. That's it. That puts the wraps on it. We are officially 1 episode in to our brand new shiny podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. We greatly appreciate everybody that clicked download and gave us their time. If you want to be on the podcast, go over to podcast.bulktransit.com and get in touch with me. I would love to welcome you on here and talk about any number of things. Maybe it's sports, maybe it's hunting, maybe it's fishing, maybe you've got a resto mod car that you're working on, you want to talk about that. We know truckers love to talk about turning wrenches. We'll also talk about the job. What's going on out there? What do you see? What's a tip that you could give a new driver after you've just completed your 10th year? None of this is off limits. And all the stuff that I didn't mention is also not off limits. We're always pneumatic, never static, and we are rolling on. Thanks for being here today. We'll talk to you next time right here on APNS.
And that's all she blows for today's episode of Always Pneumatic, Never Static, your number one and probably only pneumatic trucking podcast, brought to you by Bulk Transit. Thanks for rolling with us today. Till next time, stay safe, keep those lines clear, and keep it pumping.